so excited to film this video for you guys because the month of May is Asian Pacific Heritage Month, and in the spirit of that, I thought that it would be very timely to do the Asian American tag. I wanted to share with you guys my experience growing up Asian American, and my friend Amy gave this whole concept structure and made it very simple by creating questions, and so I just want to dive right into it, so let's get started. I am Korean American. I was born and raised in Southern California. So my parents immigrated from Korea and they first moved to Chile, and that's where my mom had my brother. But after my parents got their green card, they were able to come to America and they had me. And so I would categorize me and my brother as first generation because like my parents didn't speak any English, so we were truly the first generation to really grow up American here. The first experience when I realized that I was different from the rest of the kids was when I was in first or second grade. My mom packed my favorite food, which was kare rice, which is basically just curry with rice, and it has vegetables and meat, and it's so delicious. And I remember being so excited to eat it for lunchtime, and when I opened the Tupperware, I remember a kid looking at it and just being so disgusted. And he just called me out. He was like, "Jennifer packed poop for lunch." And I remember being so mortified and so embarrassed, and I just completely lost my appetite, and I didn't even eat that lunch. And when I got home, I told my mom that I never wanted her to pack things like this again. I told her that I only wanted her to pack like Lunchables and sandwiches, just like normal American food, so that I would fit in. When I was younger, there was a period where I was super proud to be Korean. It happened when I was around like 9 years old. My mom took me and my brother to Korea for the entire summer, and we stayed at my aunt's, and it was such an amazing experience because for once, like, I realized like everyone looked like me, and I felt really I just felt like I connected with everybody. And I remember always hanging out at this park where all the kids used to hang out, and I made a lot of friends because everyone was so fascinated at the fact that I was American. And so I would bring like chapter books that I'd packed, and I'd be like, "이거 책 알잖아, 나 다 읽을 수 있어." And everyone was like so impressed, and it was just a really great time for me. And that's when I was really just like proud of my culture, and when I brought that back to America, like that pride stayed there for a little bit until I went to middle school. And middle school was when everything just kind of changed for me. I feel like it was a lot of factors just hitting all when I was like 11. It was puberty, it was the fact that I was like chubby, and then the fact that like there weren't that many Asians in my school. I remember there was a group of these boys that walked in the same route as me home, and I remember hating when we would like cross paths because they would always say something to me, and they would say something so like racist. They would say things like, "Hey chink, do you want to do my homework?" Or, "Hey, you dropped your calculator." And now I wish that I had the strength to just clap back at them, because at the time I just didn't say anything. I was so scared. I was genuinely afraid for my life. And I wish that I had the courage to just like stand up to them and be like, "Hey, yes, I did drop my calculator. Thank you. I'm really, really gonna need this when I'm just calculating all my finances in the future." But unfortunately, I wasn't like that. I think this also crossed at the same path when my parents made me go to Korean school on Saturday, and I was so pissed that they were making me and my brother go to school an extra day. Like, we already had Monday through Friday, and now they're adding like a whole new curriculum for Saturday. And like they also made us go to church every Sunday. So I felt like I had no days off. So we had to go to Korean school, and there was this one instance with a teacher that just really stuck with me. She was telling us that when people ask us what our ethnicity is, we need to say that we are Korean American. The Korean always has to be first. And I remember being very unsettled by it because I felt like in my heart that I was American. So I rose my hand, I told her my piece, and she said, "No, you are always going to be Korean. You're Korean American." And I just said, like, why can't I just be American? I was born here, I speak the language, I don't understand. I just felt like this big distance between my culture and what I was brought into. I associated being Korean as a negative thing because number one, the bullying sucked. And number two, I would see the way people would treat my parents. Like my parents didn't speak English very well. I would just see the way people would treat my parents because of their accent. People lose their temper, people get frustrated, people treat you like you're an idiot when you have an accent. And it just really frustrated me. And my mom is already kind of a shy, timid person. And I think when she was thrown into this world in America as like a foreign person, I think that just made her recluse even more. One stereotype that I absolutely struggled with growing up was the model minority stereotype. The fact that all Asians are amazing at crunching numbers and they're just really great academically, blah, 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 blah. And I think from an outsider's perspective, people might think, wow, like that's actually a really good stereotype. Like people just think you're really smart. But it puts a lot of pressure on you, especially when you are not academically smart. Growing up, I tried my best to be a good student. Like I would literally spend hours and hours doing my homework and all this stuff, and it just wouldn't register to me. Like I was always like a B minus C student. Like one time I got a D, and like in an Asian household, like that is unacceptable. Like my B minuses were such disappointments to my parents, and they would always compare me to like other kids. And because I wasn't the best student, I felt this distance between my Asian American peers that were very studious. So I just found like a new group of friends, like friends that I can connect with artistically and creatively. And obviously like there was like Asian Americans there too, but it was like a whole mix, and it was really cool. Like we would, burn CDs for each other. We'd go to shows, we'd go thrifting, and I felt really blessed that I was able to have my own community in high school. Yes, I can speak Korean. I would probably say I speak the equivalent of like a 7-year-old, maybe a 6-year-old now. Like I know how to get by. I know how to, ask for directions, order food, have like light conversation. But anything with depth, I'm just like, ugh. Like, I don't know. When I watch the Korean news, I'm just kind of like, I don't know what they're saying. They have to talk a lot slower. It was a lot better when I was living with my parents, obviously. Like I speak Konglish with my parents. So I'll speak Korean and then I'll just fill in English words where I don't know the Korean words. I just don't understand, like, where did all those years of Korean school go? Like, did I just bury them in a box? Like, I don't know. But I want to change this desperately. And so I'm just gonna do like an open call now. I am looking for a Korean tutor. If you are based in the Los Angeles area, I would love for you to DM me on my Instagram. It's I'm Jenn Im. I guess you just tell me your name, your age, what school you go to, or if you did. And just like what kind of program would you put me on for, my Korean tutoring session? Being Korean American absolutely affected my relationship with my parents. There was a lot of frustration and anger because of all the miscommunication that would happen. There were so many times where I'm just trying to talk to my parents, but there are just words that I just didn't know, and vice versa. And we would just have yelling matches. Like I would scream at them being like, why can't you learn English? And they would just say like, why don't you know Korean? Like you are Korean. And so it always felt like this battle. And growing up my entire life, I felt this huge disconnect from my brain and my mouth. Like I felt like I couldn't say exactly what I was feeling, or I couldn't articulate and put into words. So writing was a nightmare for me. I hated writing because I would just look at the paper and be like, I just don't know what to say. I don't know, like maybe, was it because I was juggling 2 languages? Like, I don't know. I mean, but I just look at other people and I see like you grew up with like 4 languages and you're fine. So I don't know, maybe it's just like a personal thing, but I've always had trouble communicating. And so with my parents, with that language barrier, it was just like an extra level of just fogginess. And I was just very angry growing up. And I feel really bad for my parents because when I was a teenager, I was kind of a nightmare. So now I want to chat about the power dynamics, because I feel like that was kind of off with my parents, because when we were at home, obviously my parents were in charge, so we'd listen to them. But when we were out and about, we would always be translating and speaking, especially for my mom. And it's because my mom is a very shy and fearful person. And I don't know if she was always this way, because I didn't know her when she was younger, but I think it's because of the judgment that people would give, because something really traumatic happened to her while she was out here. So when I was in preschool, I remember my dad picked me up from school, and I knew something was wrong because normally my mom picks me up from school. So we go home and I go to my parents' room and I see my mom just lying on the bed with a towel on her face. And so I asked my dad, like, is everything okay? And he says, oh, she's just napping. We find out later that someone had robbed the store. My parents had a really small shop that sold women's clothes in El Monte, and someone had a knife and he told her to give her the money in the register, and my mom refused because that was all the money we had. And so she said no, and he sliced her face, and of course he took the money. And she was a very fearful person after that. She never spoke, and I think it took her a very long time to recover from that. And when she told me that story again when I was older, it just lit a fire in me. Like because I never want my parents to be in a situation like that ever again. And the reason why I'm telling this story is because I feel like first generation parents, they have to do the shitty jobs. They have to work in the dangerous locations. They have to work at the salon, the convenience stores. And they do this because they want to give us a better life. And so it makes me want to try so hard and to be able to provide for them, and so that they never have to worry about that again. Every day I'm so grateful that they chose to move here to give me and my brother a better life, to give all of us a better life. And whenever I'm feeling unmotivated or I feel like I just can't do it, I think of that and it just snaps me right back up, and it just fuels me to push harder. I feel so proud to be Korean American now, and it definitely took some time. I think it's because the older I got, the more I just had to accept myself, and I started to embrace my heritage when I was probably like a senior in high school to a freshman in college. I think that's when I realized, like, I can't change who I am, so I have to accept it. And I really hope that people don't judge me for wanting to distance myself from my culture, because I think it all came from a place of me just really wanting to fit in and really wanting for people to like me. I'm here now and I'm so freaking proud to be Korean American, and I want to specify that I'm both. In America, generally, people just see me as an Asian. And when I go back to Korea, or when people or Asian Americans go back to their motherland, people categorize us as Americans. So we don't fully belong in either. We're in our own category, and I'm not mad about that. I love the fact that I can have the best of both worlds. It's like the Hannah Montana song. My favorite thing about being Korean American is the resilience, because I feel like Korea has gone through so much, from imperialism to war, and now the fact that we are one of the major players in the economy just fills me with so much pride. Like, we are killing it in the cars, the technology, the cosmetics, entertainment. K-pop is freaking nuts, and K-dramas. So the fact that we were able to build from nothing in such a short amount of time makes me so proud. Like, I am just always cheering on the underdog, no matter where you're from, what your background is. I just love when people realize that it's never too late to evolve. Alright guys, those are all the answers to my tag. I would love for you guys to be able to fill out the questions down below, whether you want to do it in a comment or even your own video. I want to know what it was like growing up, whatever ethnicity you were. Just replace the Korean or Asian to whatever your heritage is, and I would love for you to share your experience. Like, we live in this globalized world where we can share our stories, we can explain what happened, so that way we can learn from it. I want to thank you guys for finishing this video and listening to me, because it really, really means a lot. So thank you for watching. Bye!